Hello, my name is Ben.
And my name's Josh.
And welcome back to FPL Graduates and welcome back to another video. Now, as you can see by the title, it's not just us two today. We're going to be joined by a very special guest, a TikTok sensation to say the least. He's the guy that does your random takeaways. We've got Owen Riemann on and we're going to be discussing his FPL draft. Josh, are you excited for this?
Yeah, let's get into it, mate. So here we are. Owen's here. How you doing, mate? Oh, he's disappeared.
Sorry, I just realised the lights were on. That's why it's so dark.
That has to be in it. That is so funny. Owen's here, and then he just leaves short. It was just perfect. Right, so we got Owen here. How you doing, mate? Let us know. Let them know in the comments where they can find you and stuff like that. What you do on TikTok? Let us know.
Yeah, I'm Owen. My TikTok's Owen Riemann. I've got the worst quality in the world. You can tell I'm not a YouTuber, so don't try and find me there. I'm just on TikTok, and I do food reviews.
Love it, mate. So how long you been playing FPL? You're a bit of an FPL fan on the side, whilst eating that takeaway. So how long you been playing? You've had any decent ranks and stuff like that?
About 3 years. My first year I gave up in about September time, so I was about 3 millionth in the world. But the last 2 years, I've sort of given it a good go. I've watched some videos, try harder a little bit. Finished about 100k last year. I was about 50k with about a week to go, but I threw it away with some silly transfers, and yeah, it didn't go to plan. But we're going bigger and stronger this year.
So, Owen, we know that you've been playing FPL for a couple of years now. And in terms of sort of FPL players this year, you must, and I know you very well, you must have some very controversial opinions and some controversial opinions about certain players. Tell us your controversial opinion about FPL this year based on a player.
I don't think Trent is worth it, personally.
Why not? I
was trying to. He's a good asset to have in your team. I was trying to squeeze in Trent, Salah, and Haaland. Didn't work. Didn't look nice. Couldn't do it. So I've had to ditch one of the three, and I feel like Salah and Haaland are essentials. So with that reasoning, I feel like Trent isn't a necessity, whereas Salah and Haaland, I'd say are essential.
Right, so you've told us who you think is going to be sort of a player you think is a bit overhyped. Is there a player right now that's in your team that you think, you know what, everyone's just overlooking him, they're underhyping him, he's going to be a great asset this year? I know you've got one or two that you're thinking of.
I'm liking the look of Pedro Porro at Spurs. He's in my team. He came in late last night in about my 25th millionth change so far this season. And I like Brighton's keeper, Verbruggen, or I don't know, I've said his name completely wrong, but I think he's going to be one that's under the radar and one that I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah, some nice picks there. Pedro Porro's got loads of good attacking data as well. It'll be interesting with Brighton's keepers because they still have Steele. They have that Verbruggen, like you said. I don't know how you say his name either, to be honest.
And they've got Sanchez here as well.
Yeah, they've got Sanchez who, you think I thought they were going to sell him this window, but they haven't yet. So there's loads of competition there. But I feel like whoever does play, that 4.5 million keeper is probably going to be in a lot of teams when we find out who's the starter, because Brighton's defence last season was so good, wasn't it?
I'm looking at Onana at 5 million if he comes in. But obviously right now he's not officially signed. So for now it's Verbruggen and Areola as a £4 million kind of like placeholder. But Onana's he'll be in a lot of teams, I think, when he eventually signs from Inter Milan.
Yeah, lots of hype beast Man United fans out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
Too many.
Okay, so you've heard a little bit about Owen's FPL background. We're going to take a look at his most recent draft. He's made a million changes, but is this the final one? I don't think so. So let's take a look at it now.
Okay, so we're going to get into Owen's team now. We're going to start off with the keepers, defence, midfield and forwards, and obviously the bench too. Owen, talk us through your keeper choice. It's a player that not too many have in their teams, right?
Yeah, it's Verbruggen or Verbruggen from Leicester, Brighton. God, not Leicester. He's down to about 3% owned. So he's quite lowly owned. Obviously, they've got Steele, Sanchez, and now him. So there's a lot of keepers there. But if he plays, Brighton are a defensively solid team, and he could get quite a few points at quite a decent price of 4.5 million. But obviously, Onana is waiting to come in once he signs from Inter Milan. But for now, it's Verbruggen.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid pick. Like we discussed just now, I think the Brighton keeper will be an interesting one to see who comes in. I think it's definitely a reasonable reason to double up on that Brighton defence. In my most recent draft that we uploaded, I had Veltman and Estupinan. With those like first 3 fixtures, I think they could literally keep 3 clean sheets. So yeah, really nice pick and goal.
So from the defence, I'll go from left to right. Obviously, Luke Shaw's there. I think he's in a lot of teams. He might not be in mine come the start of the season. I don't fancy having him and Onana. It's quite pricey too as well. So he's there for the time being. But I mean, obviously, if he's left centre back, I'm not as keen. I'd rather him play obviously as an actual fullback to get more attacking returns. Estupiñán, I can't ever say his name. I'm sorry if I've said his name completely wrong. It's something to do with Brighton players. I can't say the names completely. But he's in there just because I kind of sort of followed the crowd. He's in everyone's teams. I thought I don't want to miss out on the sort of the template really. So he's jumped in as a kind of sheep selection. Pedro Porro, obviously very different to Estupiñán, very lowly owned, but good attacking returns, good fixtures. Obviously a new manager coming in Andrzej Postecoglou. I can't say his name either, but quite an attacking manager. So hopefully attacking returns. And then Gabriel at Arsenal, obviously last year's second place team. Very good fixture to kick things off. I think he played every single game last year for Arsenal, so not really a minute's risk. Bags in a few goals in a sort of defensively solid side. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this defense is going to get me a few points.
Yeah, I definitely like this defence in terms of sort of the Arsenal players. Obviously, quite a few FPL managers have gone for Ramsdale, and I think once Onana joins, Gabriel could become a very popular pick. His threat from set pieces are really high. As you alluded to, Pedro Porro, those attacking numbers are really, really good. And again, with the new manager, Postecoglou, as you pronounced it very well, I think he could get some decent numbers. Interesting that you're sort of looking at potentially moving Luke Shaw on. I was sort of having a look at some stats and some underlying bonus points, sort of the baseline bonus points that you go for. And it could potentially be that sort of over the course of next season, Onana produces and picks up more bonus points than Luke Shaw when Manchester United get a clean sheet, just based on pass completion rate and sort of tackles and crosses and that sort of thing. Onana could potentially be a bit higher in that and have sort of a similar ceiling to him, so to speak. So I do like that defence. Very good. Porro, nice differential. Let's move on to your midfield, Owen.
So in the midfield, I'll go from right to left this time. I'll mix it up. Mbeumo, in a lot of teams again. Obviously, you could play up front for Brentford. So obviously you got a striker at a midfield price point of 6.5 million. I think that's a very good player to have in your team. I'm not going to play each week, but it's a good bench option. Or in this case, he's starting in my 5 currently. Salah, I just can't leave him out. He's a guaranteed point scorer, 200 plus points, 20 goals, multiple assists each season. Hasn't ever scored in game week 2, which does concern me, but he does like a goal in game week 1. So we'll see how it goes there. Bruno Fernandes, like Salah as well, is on penalties. He's a bit cheaper than Rashford, which kind of sways it towards, obviously going towards Bruno. Foden, I'd say, is a slight differential. Obviously, I think De Bruyne's out for the start of the season. Mahrez could be going to Saudi Arabia. Grealish is probably still hungover. So Foden's, obviously one that could start and will be under the radar. And obviously Saka, guaranteed starter, like Salah, guaranteed point scorer, talisman for Arsenal. And he's going to be in a lot of teams. And he's got, like Gabriel, he's got a nice set of opening 5 fixtures. So it should be a few points in those first 5 games.
Yeah, defo. There's some really nice picks there. And you mentioned the word talisman, and you've got basically 4 out of 5 of those midfielders, all talisman for their teams. A lot of players on penalties, which is really important. And Mbeumo potentially on penalties for Brentford between him and Visser. I think whoever gets those penalties, maybe we see in pre-season, will be pretty much a go-to pick. I've seen a lot of people with Visser in their draft. Salah as well. I'm agreeing with you in that Salah train. I think Salah's a more important asset to own than Trent for the start of the season. It's a big risk. I think either way, you could get rewarded or it could go downhill. But I think Salah's probably the safer option. It'll be interesting to see what Ben thinks on that. But yeah, the other picks are also really good, really template as well, which is important at the start of the season because you can lose FPL in the first few weeks, but you can't win it. So, picking template players is really, really important. What's your thoughts on the Salah pick, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, as a current Trent owner over Salah, it's really interesting to see your thoughts behind that. And I think there's going to be some really big swings early doors just because of that. We know Liverpool have a lot of depth going forwards, but Salah's not one to get rotated. So there is some really good reasoning as to why you would have him in. But it's a general case in FPL of not being able to own everyone. And to be honest, I see the reasonings behind owning Salah or Trent. I just can't see how you can fit them both in your FPL teams. There's just too many good midfielders. So yeah, I'm very much on the fence with that one, just as much as you probably are as well with leaving Trent out.
I think it depends also on where Trent plays at the start of the season. If he's still in that sort of midfield role and he's getting clean sheets and attacking returns, then maybe I'll look to maybe swap Salah out and save some money, and maybe like a Heung-min Son come in, or someone like maybe Rashford and Bruno, or maybe a Raheem Sterling with his fixes at the start of the season. But obviously for now, I think Salah's sort of the safer option than Trent. Obviously we'll see how it plays out in the starting sort of the first 5-6 games. So obviously no surprise up front. We've gone for Erling Haaland and he's captain for the first game. I was going to captain Salah to begin with because he loves a goal in game week 1, but I think Chelsea away is far trickier than Burnley away. And obviously I think everyone's going to captain Haaland, so you can't not captain Haaland and go against him. Because like you said, you can lose it early on. And I think not captain Haaland early on can lose you a lot of points, which happened last year when I had Kane in my team in the first week of last season rather than Haaland, and I was obviously very quickly behind everyone else in my little mini leagues.
Yeah, he's pretty much a banker for everyone. Is there any chance that you think that this season might be different from last? Will he maybe slow it down a little bit? Because last season it was a bit ridiculous, especially at the start of the season. He was just braces, hat tricks, like pretty much every single week. Do you reckon that's going to be the same, or do you reckon it's just going to change?
If you said last year that he'd score 36 goals, I would have said, nah, no chance. And I can't see him doing it again, but equally he could do it again. It's Erling Haaland. He's an absolute goal machine. Maybe not the same rate as last year, like back-to-back hat tricks and like so many goals, but he's going to get 25, 30 goals easily. And I think if you have him outside if you don't own Haaland, then it's a very costly mistake, really.
Awesome. Yeah. Should we take a look at your bench now as well?
I'd rather not. So the bench, Areola, I think that's quite a popular choice. A starting keeper potentially. Not the best side, but it's obviously the cheapest keeper you can get, and he's get a few points and bonus points. Botman, I think, is great value at 4.5 in a strong Newcastle defence. So there's a good chance that I can bring him in for someone else in the defence. And then as for the other two, Woodrow and Balogun, obviously Balogun's been linked with a Premier League move. Hasn't happened yet, but obviously if he does, it's an absolute steal at 4.5 million. And Woodrow, just because he's again cheap. And I think from what I've seen on Twitter from Luton fans, he starts more than like McAtee and stuff. So obviously it's not a great point scorer, but at least he gets a couple of minutes if I have to play him in a one-off game.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's interesting stuff. It's interesting that you've gone with the 4-5-1 because I feel like there's been a lot of talk around formation at the start of the season. The 3-5-2 is quite popular, with a lot of people going with Jesus up top with Haaland. One thing that I would say is that if Haaland was to be benched 1 week or whatever like that, you will have to have Woodrow or Balogun to come onto your team. You have to play one forward. So that's the only thing. That's the only reason why people maybe go with that 3-5-2 ahead of it, just because. Yeah, you need a striker playing every week, and sometimes Haaland does get the odd rotation. What's your thoughts on the bench, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, Cauley Woodrow played sort of 27 games last year in a championship. Only scored the 2 goals and the 1 assist. But like I said, if you can have someone at 4.5, is he 4.5 million Woodrow?
Yeah. He is, yeah.
Yeah, if you can have someone like that playing, then I don't see it bad at all. Looking at your team overall, though, like Josh said, I agree with the sort of second striker thing, but for a different reason and for more squad structure than anything else. There's quite a few strikers priced between sort of, let's say, 6.5 and 8.5 million that at any point in the first few weeks of the season could become a template and a very important player to own quite quickly. My only reservation would be that you may have to make 2 or 3 transfers to get that player in and take a hit early doors. So it may be worth considering for your team, sort of working out a way of if a player that is priced a little bit more expensive than you have in your backup forwards, how you'd be able to bring them in. Would you have to take someone like Salah out, or could you sort of downgrade one of those other mid-price midfielders to fit in? So it's definitely worth a consideration on how you could facilitate that second striker if they sort of came into some really good form.
Yeah, it's not set in stone yet. Like, I think no one's team is set in stone. But obviously, I have had sort of my concerns over having, just the one kind of starting striker in Haaland. I'm liking the look of of either Nunes or Gakpo at Liverpool, but obviously I want to sort of see who kind of starts first and see what sort of structure they play. So maybe sort of early in the season, I can obviously downgrade like a Foden or maybe even like a Bruno into one of those strikers. But obviously for now, I'm going risky. I'm going with just Haaland, and then obviously we'll see what happens in the first, sort of 3 or 4 games.
Okay, so that was Owen's team reveal so far for FPL. Of course, it's going to change many a times before the deadline. Owen, if you're going to give a prediction, how many times do you reckon that's going to change before game week 1?
Yeah, probably another few million or so. I'll probably by the end of the night. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'll take a picture of it now. I'll take a picture of it on game week 1, and we'll see how much it's changed in those next couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant to have you on, Owen. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, do you want
Perfect. Do you want to just plug where people can find you? They probably already know if they've come from TikTok, but just
I'll give a little plug and a fun fact. So plug is Owen Riemann on TikTok, and a fun fact: I was in a mini league last year with both Ben and Josh, as you see here. And Josh, I believe, came first or second, but Ben, however, did lose to me in last year's mini league. I'll put that on his channel just to let everyone know that I am perhaps the one that should be leading this video rather than Ben. But yeah, we'll see what happens in next year's mini league.
So you can expect soon me and Owen to swap roles, and I'll be doing some takeaway reviews very soon for you guys.